In the heart of the city, a small brown cat becomes an unlikely hero when it leads Officer Mia Carter to a shocking discovery: a young boy trapped in an abandoned construction site. But this is just the beginning of a dangerous journey, as Mia uncovers a vast smuggling network led by a shadowy figure known only as the Broker. With lives on the line and time running out, Mia must rely on her instincts, her team, and even the clever cat to bring down the criminal empire. At Critters Planet, we bring you real-life stories of animals who've made a difference in the most unexpected ways. If you enjoyed this incredible tale of bravery and survival, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and thrilling animal stories. The city was waking up, its streets slowly coming alive with the hum of engines, the chatter of early risers, and the rhythmic clatter of footsteps on pavement. Dawn painted the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, casting a golden glow over the urban landscape. It was a morning like any other, ordinary and predictable, until it wasn't. Amid the symphony of city sounds, a small brown cat darted through the crowd, its fur matted and its paws pounding against the concrete with urgency. Its tail twitched frantically, not in the playful way cats often do, but in a desperate, almost pleading manner. The cat's wide, amber eyes scanned the faces around it, searching for someone, anyone, who could understand its silent cry for help. Officer Mia Carter stood at the corner of Maple Avenue and 3rd Street, her sharp eyes scanning the street as she sipped her coffee. Mia was a seasoned patrol officer, known for her quick instincts and compassionate heart. She had seen it all in her years on the force, but something about this morning felt different. The air was charged with an unspoken tension, as if the city itself was holding its breath. That's when she saw the cat. It bolted straight toward her, weaving through the legs of pedestrians with surprising agility. Mia crouched down, setting her coffee aside, and extended a hand toward the trembling creature. "Hey there, little one," she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise of the street. "What's wrong?" The cat didn't respond with a purr or a nuzzle. Instead, it tugged at her pant leg with its teeth, its tiny body trembling with what seemed like fear and urgency. Mia's instincts kicked in. This wasn't just a stray looking for food or attention. Something was wrong. Okay, Mia murmured, standing up. "I'm listening." The cat took a few steps back, then turned to look at her, its eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. It was as if the cat was trying to tell her something, to lead her somewhere. Mia hesitated for a moment, glancing around at the onlookers who had stopped to watch the unusual scene. Their faces were a mix of confusion and amusement, but Mia didn't have time to explain. "Stay here," she told her partner, Officer Jake Ramirez, who was leaning against their patrol car a few feet away. "I'm going to see what this is about." Jake raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Be careful, Mia. You don't know where that thing's been." Mia didn't respond. Her focus was entirely on the cat, which was now trotting ahead, pausing every few steps to make sure she was following. The cat led her down an alleyway, the noise of the city fading behind them as they ventured deeper into the shadows. The alley was narrow and lined with dumpsters, the air thick with the scent of garbage and damp concrete. The cat stopped at a rusted gate that led to an abandoned construction site. It scratched at the ground and let out a low, guttural meow, its eyes fixed on Mia as if urging her to go further. Mia's hand instinctively went to the holster at her hip as she pushed the gate open, her senses on high alert. The construction site was a skeletal framework of steel beams and half-finished walls, its silence eerie and unsettling. The cat darted ahead, its small form disappearing into the shadows. Mia followed cautiously, her boots crunching against the gravel. That's when she saw it, a faint trail of blood leading deeper into the site. Her heart pounded as she knelt to examine the trail. It was fresh, no more than a few hours old. The cat reappeared, its tail twitching anxiously as it led her toward a pile of wooden planks stacked haphazardly against a concrete wall. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she approached. Beneath the planks, barely visible in the dim light, was a small hand. "Hello?" Mia called, her voice steady but urgent. "Can you hear me?" The hand moved slightly, a weak sign of life that spurred Mia into action. She immediately reached for her radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Carter. I need immediate backup and medical assistance at the abandoned construction site off Maple Avenue. Possible injured party under debris. Over." The voice on the other end crackled with confirmation, but Mia knew time was critical. She turned her attention back to the trapped figure, carefully removing the lighter pieces of wood while ensuring she didn't cause further harm. The cat stood nearby, its meows replaced by a low, anxious purr as it paced nervously. As Mia cleared away more debris, she uncovered a young boy, no older than 8. His face was pale and streaked with dirt, his clothes torn and bloodied. His eyes fluttered open, locking onto hers with a mixture of fear and relief. "Hey, sweetheart," Mia said, her voice calm but firm. "You're safe now. I'm Officer Mia. What's your name?" The boy's lips trembled, and tears welled in his eyes. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Ethan," Mia repeated, brushing some dirt off his face. "You're going to be okay. I promise. Can you tell me what happened?" Ethan's breath hitched, and he struggled to speak. The bad men. They were chasing me. I hid here, but the wood fell." Mia's heart sank as the pieces began to fall into place. Whoever these bad men were, they had left a child to fend for himself in a dangerous construction site. She gently squeezed Ethan's hand, offering him a reassuring smile. "You're very brave, Ethan," she said. "Do you know where your parents are?" Ethan shook his head, his tears spilling over. "I don't know. I ran away when they came for me." Mia's mind raced. This was more than just a rescue mission, it was the beginning of something much bigger. The distant sound of sirens grew louder, signaling that backup and medical assistance were nearing. Mia waved to guide them in, quickly briefing her colleagues on the situation. As paramedics rushed to Ethan's side, carefully lifting him onto a stretcher, the cat let out a sharp meow, drawing Mia's attention to a nearby pile of rubble. The feline's instincts had already proven invaluable, and Mia wasn't about to ignore them now. "Stay with him," she instructed one of the paramedics before walking toward the direction the cat was pointing out with its anxious meows. Pushing aside a sheet of corrugated metal, Mia uncovered a backpack. Inside, she found a few essential items, a water bottle, some snacks, and a small notebook. Flipping through its pages, she discovered drawings of a family, a man, a woman, and a boy who looked remarkably like Ethan. The crude but heartfelt sketches spoke volumes about the boy's world. On the final page, scrawled in shaky handwriting, was a phone number. Mia immediately dialed the number on her phone. After a few rings, a woman's voice answered, frail with worry. "Hello?" "Hi, ma'am," Mia said, her tone calm but urgent. "This is Officer Mia Carter of the City Police Department. I believe we found your son, Ethan. He's safe, but he's had quite an ordeal." The woman on the other end let out a sob of relief. "Oh, thank God. Is he okay? Where is he? Please, tell me where I can find him." Mia quickly relayed the location and assured the woman that her son was in good hands. "We're taking him to City General Hospital to make sure he's all right. You can meet us there." As Mia hung up, she felt a surge of satisfaction. The pieces were starting to come together, but something about Ethan's mention of bad men nagged at her. Who were they, and why were they chasing a child? She looked down at the cat, who had been watching her intently the entire time. "Good work, Whiskers," she said, scratching its head. "But I think our work here isn't done." The cat purred softly, its tail twitching as if it understood. The hospital was a flurry of activity as paramedics wheeled Ethan into the emergency room, his small frame dwarfed by the stretcher. Officer Mia Carter followed closely, her mind racing with questions. Who were the bad men Ethan had mentioned? Why had they been chasing him? And what role did the cat, Whiskers, play in all of this? Whiskers trotted beside Mia, his amber eyes darting around the sterile, brightly lit hallway. The cat had refused to leave Ethan's side, his loyalty unwavering. Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude toward the feline. Without Whiskers, she might never have found Ethan in time. Ethan's mother, Clara, arrived at the hospital within minutes, her face pale and streaked with tears. She rushed to her son's side, clutching his hand as the doctors began their examination. Mia stood nearby, watching the reunion with a mixture of relief and unease. "Thank you," Clara said, her voice trembling as she turned to Mia. "Thank you for saving my son." Mia nodded, her expression softening. "He's a brave kid. But we're not out of the woods yet. Ethan mentioned that he was being chased by bad men. Do you have any idea who they might be?" Clara's face fell, and she glanced nervously around the room. I don't know. We've been on the run for weeks. My ex-husband, Ethan's father, he got involved with some dangerous people. I thought we were safe after we left him, but..." Mia's jaw tightened. This was worse than she had anticipated. "Mrs. Evans, I need you to be honest with me. What kind of people are we dealing with?" Clara hesitated, her hands trembling as she wiped her tears. "They're part of a smuggling ring. My ex-husband tried to get out, but they wouldn't let him. When he died, I thought they'd leave us alone, but..." Her voice broke, and Mia placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're going to protect you and Ethan. But I need to know everything you can tell me about these people. Anything could help." Clara nodded, though her fear was palpable. "I don't know much. My ex-husband kept a lot from me. But there's a safe in our old house. He never let me near it. I don't know what's inside, but maybe it's something they want." Mia's mind raced. If the safe contained evidence of the smuggling ring, it could be the key to dismantling the entire operation. But retrieving it wouldn't be easy, especially if the bad men were still watching Clara and Ethan. "We'll need to move you and Ethan to a safe house," Mia said, her tone firm. "Somewhere they can't find you. And we'll need to get that safe open as soon as possible." Clara nodded, though her eyes were filled with dread. "Whatever it takes. I just want my son to be safe." Mia stepped away to make the necessary arrangements, her mind working overtime. She called her supervisor, Captain Harris, and briefed him on the situation. "We've got a potential lead on a smuggling ring," Mia explained. "But the suspects are dangerous, and they're after a woman and her son. I need authorization to move them to a safe house and to retrieve evidence from their old home." Captain Harris didn't hesitate. "Do whatever it takes, Carter. But be careful. These people sound like they won't go down without a fight." By the time Mia returned to the hospital room, Ethan was resting comfortably, his injuries treated and his vitals stable. Whiskers lay curled up at the foot of his bed, his purring a soothing presence in the otherwise tense atmosphere. "We're ready to move you," Mia told Clara. "There's a safe house outside the city. It's secure, and you'll have round-the-clock protection." Clara nodded, though her fear was evident. "What about Ethan? He's been through so much." "He'll be safe," Mia assured her. "We'll have medical staff on hand to monitor his condition. And Whiskers can stay with him." The mention of the cat seemed to bring a small measure of comfort to Clara. She managed a faint smile as she stroked Whiskers' fur. "Thank you," she whispered, though it wasn't clear if she was speaking to Mia or the cat. The move to the safe house was swift and carefully coordinated. Mia and her team escorted Clara and Ethan to an unmarked van, with Whiskers following close behind. The safe house was a modest cabin nestled deep in the woods, its location known only to a select few. As they settled in, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She stationed officers around the perimeter and set up surveillance cameras to monitor the area. Whiskers, ever vigilant, prowled the cabin's interior, his ears twitching at every sound. That evening, Mia sat down with Clara to discuss their next steps. "We'll need to retrieve the safe from your old house," Mia explained. "But we'll have to do it carefully. If these people are watching, they'll be expecting us to make a move." Clara nodded, though her hands trembled as she clutched a cup of tea. "I understand. But what if they're already there? What if they're waiting for you?" "Well, be prepared," Mia said, her tone reassuring. "But I need to know, is there anything else you can tell me about the safe? Anything at all?" Clara hesitated, her gaze distant. "My ex-husband. He was paranoid. He always said the safe was our insurance. But he never told me what was inside. I think it might have something to do with the smuggling ring. Maybe names, or locations." MIA's pulse quickened. If the safe contained information about the smuggling ring, it could be the key to bringing the entire operation down. But retrieving it would be risky, especially if the bad men were still in the picture. "We'll move at first light," Mia said, her resolve hardening. "In the meantime, try to get some rest. You and Ethan are safe here." Clara nodded, though her eyes were filled with worry. "Thank you, Officer Carter. For everything." Mia gave her a small smile. "It's my job. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you or Ethan." As the night wore on, Mia found herself unable to sleep. She sat by the window, her gaze fixed on the dark woods outside. Whiskers joined her, curling up in her lap as if sensing her unease. "You're a good cat, Whiskers," Mia murmured, scratching behind his ears. "But I think this is just the beginning." The cat purred softly, his amber eyes reflecting the moonlight. It was as if he understood the gravity of the situation, and the danger that lay ahead. The first light of dawn crept through the trees, casting long shadows over the safe house. Mia Carter stood by the window, her coffee cup in hand, staring out at the quiet woods. The night had been uneventful, but the tension in the air was palpable. Whiskers sat at her feet, his tail twitching as if he, too, could sense the unease. Clara and Ethan were still asleep in the adjacent room, their soft breathing a reminder of the fragile peace they had found. Mia knew it wouldn't last. The safe in Clara's old house held answers that could either protect them or put them in even greater danger. MIA's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was her partner, Jake Ramirez. "We're ready to move," he said, his voice low and steady. "The team's assembled, and we've got a plan to retrieve the safe. But we'll need to move fast." "Understood," Mia replied, her gaze still fixed on the woods. "I'll meet you at the rendezvous point in 20." She ended the call and turned to Whiskers, who was now sitting upright, his ears perked as if listening intently. "You stay here, buddy," she said, scratching his head. "Keep an eye on them for me." The cat meowed softly, his amber eyes locking onto hers. It was almost as if he understood. Mia grabbed her jacket and headed for the door, pausing only to check on Clara and Ethan. They were still asleep, their faces peaceful despite the turmoil of the past few days. Mia felt a pang of guilt for leaving them, but she knew this was necessary. The safe held the key to unraveling the smuggling ring, and every second counted. The rendezvous point was a secluded parking lot a few miles from the safe house. Jake and the rest of the team were already there, their vehicles idling quietly. Mia approached, her expression grim. "Here's the plan," Jake said, unfolding a map on the hood of his car. "The house is here, on the edge of the city. We'll approach from the back to avoid drawing attention. Once we're inside, we'll locate the safe and extract it as quickly as possible. No unnecessary risks. Mia nodded, her eyes scanning the map. What about the new owners? Have they been notified? They're out of town, Jake replied. We've got a warrant, so we're clear to enter. But we'll need to be careful. If the bad men are watching the house, they'll be expecting us. The team moved out, their vehicles cutting through the early morning fog. The drive was tense, each member of the team lost in their own thoughts. MIA's mind raced with possibilities. What was in the safe? Names? Locations? Evidence that could bring down the entire smuggling ring? They arrived at the house just as the sun began to rise. It was a modest two-story home, its paint peeling and its yard overgrown. Mia felt a pang of sadness as she looked at it. This had once been Clara and Ethan's home, a place of safety and comfort. Now, it was a potential death trap. The team moved quickly and quietly, approaching the house from the back. Jake picked the lock on the door, and they slipped inside, their weapons drawn. The interior was dark and musty, the air thick with the scent of dust and neglect. The safe's in the basement, Mia whispered, leading the way. They descended the creaky stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The basement was cluttered with boxes and old furniture, but MIA's eyes were drawn to a corner where a heavy metal safe sat, its surface covered in a thin layer of dust. There it is, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia approached the safe, her heart pounding. She knelt in front of it, examining the lock. It was a combination lock, and she had no idea what the code might be. We'll need to crack it, she said, turning to Jake. Call in the locksmith. Jake nodded and stepped away to make the call. Mia stayed by the safe, her mind racing. What secrets did it hold? And how much danger were they in by being here? The locksmith arrived within minutes, his tools clinking softly as he worked on the safe. The tension in the room was palpable, each second stretching into an eternity. Finally, with a soft click, the safe door swung open. MIA's breath caught in her throat as she peered inside. The safe was filled with documents, folders, notebooks, and USB drives. She reached in and pulled out a folder, her hands trembling as she flipped through its contents. This is it, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Names, locations, financial records. Everything we need to bring them down. Jake stepped closer, his eyes wide. This is bigger than we thought. This isn't just a smuggling ring, it's an entire network. Mia nodded, her mind racing. We need to get this back to the precinct. Now. The team moved quickly, gathering the contents of the safe and loading them into a secure case. As they prepared to leave, MIA's radio crackled to life. Officer Carter, this is dispatch. We've got movement near the safe house. Multiple vehicles approaching. Over. MIA's heart sank. Copy that. We're on our way. Over. She turned to Jake, her expression grim. We've got to move. Now. The drive back to the safe house was a blur, the team's vehicles speeding through the empty streets. MIA's mind raced with possibilities. Had the bad men found Clara and Ethan? Were they already too late? When they arrived, the scene was chaos. The safe house was surrounded by unmarked vehicles, their headlights cutting through the early morning fog. MIA's team moved in, their weapons drawn, but the intruders were already retreating, their tires screeching as they sped away. Mia rushed inside, her heart pounding. Clara and Ethan were huddled in the corner, their faces pale with fear. Whiskers stood in front of them, his fur bristling and his teeth bared. Are you okay? Mia asked, her voice filled with urgency. Clara nodded, though her hands were trembling. They tried to get in. But Whiskers. He scared them off. Mia looked down at the cat, who was now purring softly as he rubbed against her legs. "Good job, buddy," she said, scratching his head. But the relief was short-lived. The attack on the safe house was a clear message: the bad men weren't going to stop. And now, with the contents of the safe in their possession, Mia and her team were in even greater danger. The safe house was a flurry of activity as officers secured the perimeter and gathered evidence from the failed breach. Mia Carter stood in the living room, her arms crossed as she surveyed the scene. Clara and Ethan sat on the couch, their faces pale but resolute. Whiskers lay curled up at Ethan's feet, his amber eyes darting around the room as if expecting another attack. MIA's mind raced. The contents of the safe had confirmed their worst fears: the smuggling ring was far more extensive than they had imagined. The documents they had recovered contained names, locations, and financial records that pointed to a vast network of criminals operating across state lines. But the most chilling discovery was a single name that kept appearing in the files: the broker. "Who is this guy?" Jake muttered, flipping through one of the folders. "He's mentioned in almost every document. Payments, shipments, even hit orders. It's like he's the puppet master behind the whole operation." MIA's jaw tightened. Whoever he is, he's dangerous. And he's not going to stop until he gets what he wants. Clara looked up, her eyes filled with fear. "What does he want?" Mia hesitated, not wanting to alarm Clara further. But she knew the woman deserved the truth. "We think he's after something your ex-husband had, something in the safe. Names, locations, maybe even money. Whatever it is, it's valuable enough to put you and Ethan in danger." Clara's hands trembled as she clutched Ethan's shoulder. "What are we going to do?" Mia knelt in front of her, her voice calm but firm. "We're going to protect you. But we need your help. Is there anything else you can tell us about your ex-husband's involvement with these people? Anything at all?" Clara shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "He never told me much. He was always so secretive. But there was one thing. He used to talk about a fallback plan. He said if anything ever happened to him, there was a way out. But he never told me what it was." Mia exchanged a glance with Jake. A fallback plan could mean anything: a hidden stash of money, a list of contacts, or even evidence that could bring down the entire network. Whatever it was clear that the broker wanted it badly. "Well, find it," Mia said, her voice filled with determination. "But in the meantime, we need to move you and Ethan to a more secure location." Clara nodded, though her fear was evident. "Where will we go?" "There's a federal safe house outside the city," Mia explained. "It's heavily guarded, and only a handful of people know its location. You'll be safe there." As the team prepared to move Clara and Ethan, MIA's phone buzzed. It was Captain Harris. "Carter, we've got a problem," he said, his voice tense. "The broker's men are getting bolder. They've hit 3 more locations in the past hour, all connected to the names in those files. They're cleaning house." MIA's stomach churned. "They're tying up loose ends." "Exactly," Captain Harris replied. "And if they find out you've got Clara and Ethan, they'll come after you next. You need to move fast." Mia ended the call and turned to Jake. "We've got to get them out of here. Now." The move to the federal safe house was a tense and carefully coordinated operation. Mia and her team escorted Clara and Ethan to an armored vehicle, with Whiskers following close behind. The cat seemed to sense the gravity of the situation, his ears twitching at every sound. The federal safe house was a stark contrast to the previous one. It was a fortified building surrounded by high fences and security cameras. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their presence a reassuring reminder of the protection they offered. As Clara and Ethan settled into their new surroundings, Mia pulled Jake aside. "We need to figure out what this fallback plan is. If it's as valuable as we think, it could be the key to bringing down the broker. Jake nodded. Any ideas where to start? Mia hesitated, her mind racing. Clara mentioned that her ex-husband was paranoid. If he had a fallback plan, he wouldn't have kept it in the safe. It would be somewhere only he knew about. Like a hidden compartment? Jake suggested. Maybe, Mia said. Or maybe it's something digital. We need to go back to the house and search it again. The team returned to Clara's old house later that evening, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they combed through every inch of the property. Mia focused on the basement, her instincts telling her that the answers lay hidden in its shadows. It was Whiskers who found it. The cat had been prowling the basement, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. Suddenly, he let out a sharp meow and began scratching at a section of the wall near the safe. Mia knelt beside him, her flashlight illuminating the spot. "What is it, buddy?" She ran her fingers along the wall, feeling for any irregularities. Her heart skipped a beat when she found a small, almost imperceptible seam in the concrete. "Jake, over here," she called. Jake hurried over, his eyes widening as he saw what Mia had found. A hidden compartment? Mia nodded, her pulse quickening. "Help me get it open." It took several minutes of careful prying, but eventually, they managed to loosen the section of wall. Behind it was a small recess, and inside was a single USB drive. Mia held it up, her hands trembling. "This is it. This has to be the fallback plan." They rushed back to the precinct, where the tech team immediately began analyzing the contents of the USB drive. What they found was staggering: encrypted files containing detailed accounts of the broker's operations, including names, locations, and even recordings of conversations. "This is everything we need," the tech specialist said, his voice filled with awe. "With this, we can take down the entire network." Mia felt a surge of hope, but it was short-lived. As she reviewed the files, one name stood out: Reclamation Protocol. "What's that?" Jake asked, pointing to the screen. Mia's stomach dropped as she read the description. "It's a contingency plan. If the broker is ever compromised, his network is programmed to eliminate anyone connected to the investigation: witnesses, informants, even law enforcement." Jake's face paled. "You mean?" Mia nodded, her voice grim. "We're all targets now." The precinct was alive with tension as Mia Carter and her team pored over the files from the USB drive. The Reclamation Protocol was a chilling revelation: a systematic plan to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to the broker's network. Witnesses, informants, and even law enforcement officers were now marked for death. Mia's mind raced as she reviewed the details. The protocol outlined specific targets, timelines, and methods of elimination. Her name was on the list, along with Jake's, Clara's, and Ethan's. The broker's reach was vast, and his operatives were already in motion. "We need to warn everyone," Mia said, her voice urgent. "If they're following this protocol, we're all in danger." Captain Harris nodded, his expression grim. "I'll alert the higher-ups and coordinate with other departments. But we need to move fast. If they're targeting us, they won't wait." Mia turned to Jake. "We need to get Clara and Ethan out of the safe house. If the broker's men know where they are, they'll come for them." Jake hesitated. "Where can we take them that's safer than a federal safe house?" Mia's jaw tightened. "Somewhere they won't expect. Somewhere off the grid." The plan was risky, but they had no other choice. Mia and Jake escorted Clara and Ethan to a remote cabin deep in the mountains, far from any major roads or towns. The location was known only to a handful of trusted officers, and even then, Mia kept the details vague. As they settled into the cabin, Clara looked around nervously. "How long will we have to stay here?" "As long as it takes," Mia replied, her tone reassuring. "We're going to bring the broker down. But until then, you and Ethan need to stay hidden." Ethan, who had been quiet throughout the journey, looked up at Mia with wide eyes. "Will Whiskers stay with us?" Mia smiled faintly. "Of course. He's part of the team now." The cat, as if understanding, purred softly and nuzzled against Ethan's leg. That night, as the cabin fell silent, Mia sat by the window, her gaze fixed on the dark woods outside. Whiskers joined her, curling up in her lap as if sensing her unease. "You're a good cat, Whiskers," Mia murmured, scratching behind his ears. "But I think this is far from over." The cat purred softly, his amber eyes reflecting the moonlight. It was as if he understood the gravity of the situation, and the danger that lay ahead. The remote cabin was eerily quiet, the only sounds the rustling of leaves outside and the occasional crackle of the fireplace. Mia Carter sat at the small wooden table, her laptop open as she reviewed the files from the USB drive. The reclamation protocol was a ticking time bomb, and every second counted. Whiskers lay curled up on the couch beside Ethan, who was fast asleep. Clara sat across from Mia, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, though it had long gone cold. "We can't just sit here," Clara said, her voice trembling. "If they're coming for us, we need to do something." Mia looked up from her laptop, her expression resolute. "We are doing something. We're going to find the broker and bring him down. But we need to be smart about it. If we move too quickly, we'll walk right into a trap." Clara nodded, though her fear was evident. "What can I do to help?" Mia hesitated. "Is there anything else you can tell me about your ex-husband? Anything at all that might help us find the broker?" Clara's gaze grew distant as she thought. He used to talk about a place. Somewhere he called the hub. He said it was where everything happened, where the shipments came in and out. But he never told me where it was." Mia's pulse quickened. The hub. That could be the key to finding the broker. She turned back to her laptop, pulling up a map of the region. If the broker had a central location for his operations, it would need to be somewhere secluded but accessible. Somewhere with easy access to transportation routes but far enough off the grid to avoid detection. "Here," Mia said, pointing to a spot on the map. "This abandoned industrial complex. It's remote, but it's close to a major highway and a rail line. If I were running a smuggling operation, this is where I'd set up shop." Jake, who had been standing by the window, stepped closer to examine the map. "It's a long shot, but it's the best lead we've got." "When do we move?" "Tonight," Mia said, her voice firm. "We can't afford to wait." The plan was risky, but they had no other choice. Mia and Jake would lead a small team to the industrial complex, while a backup team stayed behind to protect Clara and Ethan. Whiskers, as always, would remain with the family, his presence a small but comforting constant. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia and Jake prepared to leave. Clara hugged Mia tightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please be careful." Mia nodded, her expression softening. "We will. And we'll bring him down. I promise." The drive to the industrial complex was tense, the team's vehicles cutting through the darkness with their headlights off. The complex loomed in the distance, its skeletal structures casting long shadows in the moonlight. Mia's heart pounded as they approached. This was it, the moment they had been working toward. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The team moved quickly and quietly, their weapons drawn as they entered the complex. The air was thick with the scent of oil and rust, the silence broken only by the occasional creak of metal. Mia's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she pressed on. They had come too far to stop now. Deep within the complex, they found what they were looking for, a hidden room filled with computers, monitors, and stacks of documents. It was the nerve center of the broker's operation. But as Mia approached the computers, a voice crackled over a hidden speaker. "Impressive, Detective Carter. But you're too late." MIA's blood ran cold. It was the broker. The voice echoed through the hidden room, cold and mocking. Mia Carter froze, her hand hovering over the keyboard of one of the computers. The broker's words sent a chill down her spine, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Show yourself," Mia demanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The broker's laughter crackled over the speaker. "Oh, Detective Carter, you're as bold as they say. But this isn't a game you can win. You've walked right into my trap." MIA's eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of the broker or his men. The team behind her tightened their grip on their weapons, their faces tense with anticipation. "What do you want?" Mia asked, buying time as she subtly signaled Jake to check the exits. "What do I want?" The broker's voice was smooth, almost amused. "I want you to understand the futility of your efforts. You think you can dismantle my network? You're a fly buzzing around a lion, Detective. And now, you've flown too close." MIA's mind raced. The broker's arrogance was his weakness. If she could keep him talking, she might be able to turn the tables. "If you're so confident, why hide behind a speaker?" Mia challenged. "Face me. Or are you too much of a coward?" There was a pause, and for a moment, Mia thought she had pushed too far. Then the speaker crackled again. "Very well, Detective. Let's play." The room's lights flickered, and the monitors on the walls lit up, displaying live feeds of various locations. Mia recognized some of them: the precinct, the federal safe house, even the remote cabin where Clara and Ethan were hiding. Her heart sank. The broker had been watching them the entire time. "You see, Detective," the broker's voice continued, "I've been one step ahead of you from the beginning. Every move you've made, every lead you've followed, I've been there, waiting. And now, it's time to end this." One of the monitors zoomed in on the cabin. MIA's breath caught in her throat as she saw Clara and Ethan sitting inside, unaware of the danger closing in around them. Whiskers was perched on the windowsill, his ears twitching as if sensing the threat. "No," Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes," the broker said, his tone dripping with malice. "Your little safe house isn't so safe anymore. And neither are you." MIA's radio crackled to life. "Mia, this is Captain Harris. We've got a problem. The safe house is under attack. We're sending reinforcements, but..." The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by static. MIA's stomach churned. She turned to Jake, her voice urgent. "We need to get back to the cabin. Now." Jake nodded, his face pale but determined. "Let's move." The team raced out of the industrial complex, their vehicles speeding through the darkness. MIA's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. How had the broker found the cabin? How had he stayed one step ahead of them this entire time? As they neared the cabin, the sound of gunfire echoed through the night. MIA's heart pounded as she saw the scene unfolding before her, masked figures surrounding the cabin, their weapons drawn. "Hold on!" Jake shouted as he swerved to avoid a fallen tree. Mia gripped the door handle, her eyes locked on the cabin. "We're not too late. We're not too late." The team's vehicle screeched to a halt, and Mia leapt out, her weapon drawn. "Police! Drop your weapons!" The masked figures turned, their movements swift and coordinated. A firefight erupted, the sound of gunfire deafening in the quiet night. Mia and her team fought with everything they had, their determination fueled by the need to protect Clara and Ethan. Inside the cabin, Clara clutched Ethan tightly, her heart racing as the sound of gunfire grew louder. Whiskers stood at the door, his fur bristling and his teeth bared. "It's going to be okay," Clara whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to reassure Ethan or herself. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a masked figure stepped inside. Clara screamed, shielding Ethan with her body. But before the intruder could take another step, Whiskers lunged, his claws slashing at the man's face. The intruder stumbled back, howling in pain, and Mia appeared in the doorway, her weapon trained on him. "Don't move," Mia said, her voice cold and steady. The man hesitated, then dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Mia quickly secured the intruder and turned to Clara and Ethan. "Are you okay?" Clara nodded, though her hands were trembling. "We're fine. Thanks to Whiskers." Mia looked down at the cat, who was now sitting calmly by Ethan's feet. "Good job, buddy," she said, scratching his head. But the relief was short-lived. The sound of approaching sirens signaled the arrival of reinforcements, but Mia knew the fight was far from over. The broker was still out there, and he wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. The cabin was a chaotic scene of flashing lights and shouting officers as reinforcements secured the area. Mia Carter stood in the doorway, her weapon still drawn as she scanned the woods for any sign of the broker's men. The masked intruder she had subdued was being led away in handcuffs, but Mia knew this was far from over. Clara and Ethan sat on the couch, their faces pale but resolute. Whiskers lay curled up at Ethan's feet, his amber eyes darting around the room as if expecting another attack. "We need to move you again," Mia said, her voice firm but gentle. "Somewhere even more secure." Clara nodded, though her hands trembled as she clutched Ethan's shoulder. "Where can we go that's safer than this?" Mia hesitated. The truth was, nowhere was truly safe as long as the broker was still out there. But they had to try. "There's a military base a few hours from here," Mia explained. "It's heavily guarded, and only a handful of people know its location. You'll be safe there." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Whatever it takes to protect Ethan. As the team prepared to move Clara and Ethan, MIA's phone buzzed. It was Captain Harris. "Carter, we've got a problem," he said, his voice tense. "The broker's men are hitting multiple locations across the city. It's like they're trying to distract us." MIA's jaw tightened. "It's not a distraction. It's a diversion. He's trying to keep us busy while he makes his move." Captain Harris sighed. "What's his endgame?" Mia glanced at Clara and Ethan, her mind racing. "He wants something. Something valuable enough to risk everything for. And I think it's in that USB drive." The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. The USB drive wasn't just evidence, it was the broker's insurance policy. If it fell into the wrong hands, it could bring down his entire network. That's why he was so desperate to get it back. "We need to decrypt the rest of those files," Mia said, her voice urgent. "If we can figure out what he's after, we can stop him." Captain Harris agreed. "He'll have the tech team work on it around the clock. But in the meantime, you need to stay focused. The broker's not going to stop until he gets what he wants." Mia ended the call and turned to Jake. "We need to get Clara and Ethan to the military base. And we need to do it now." The move to the military base was a tense and carefully coordinated operation. Mia and her team escorted Clara and Ethan to an armored vehicle, with Whiskers following close behind. The cat seemed to sense the gravity of the situation, his ears twitching at every sound. The military base was a fortress, its high walls and armed guards a reassuring reminder of the protection they offered. As Clara and Ethan settled into their new surroundings, Mia pulled Jake aside. "We need to figure out what's on that USB drive," Mia said, her voice low. "If it's as valuable as we think, it could be the key to bringing down the broker." Jake nodded. "Any ideas where to start?" Mia hesitated, her mind racing. "The tech team's working on it, but we need to think like the broker. If he's willing to risk everything for this, it has to be something big." As they spoke, MIA's phone buzzed again. It was the tech team. "Detective Carter, we've decrypted part of the USB drive," the tech specialist said, his voice filled with excitement. "There's a file labeled Endgame. It's a detailed plan to dismantle the entire network, but only if the broker is captured or killed." MIA's pulse quickened. "What's in the plan?" "Names, locations, financial records, everything we need to bring down the entire operation," the tech specialist replied. "But there's a catch. The file is encrypted with a self-destruct protocol. If anyone tries to access it without the proper code, it will erase itself." MIA's heart sank. "Can we bypass it?" "We're working on it," the tech specialist said. "But it's going to take time." Mia ended the call and turned to Jake. "We need to find that code. If we can unlock the file, we can bring down the broker's entire network." Jake nodded, his expression grim. "But how do we find it?" Mia hesitated, her mind racing. "The broker's paranoid. He wouldn't trust anyone with the code. It has to be something only he knows." As she spoke, her eyes fell on Whiskers, who was sitting calmly by Ethan's feet. The cat had been their constant companion throughout this ordeal, his instincts proving invaluable time and time again. "Whiskers," Mia murmured, crouching down to scratch his head. "You've been our lucky charm so far. Think you can help us one more time?" The cat purred softly, his amber eyes locking onto hers as if he understood. The military base was a hive of activity as Mia Carter and her team worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the USB drive. The file labeled Endgame was their best chance at dismantling the broker's network, but the self-destruct protocol was a formidable obstacle. Mia sat at a makeshift desk in the base's command center, her eyes scanning the decrypted portions of the file. The information they had so far was tantalizing: names, locations, financial records, but it was incomplete. Without the full picture, they were still flying blind. Jake approached, holding a cup of coffee. "Any progress?" Mia shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "We've tried every code we can think of, dates, names, even random combinations. Nothing works. If we keep guessing, we risk triggering the self-destruct protocol." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "There has to be something we're missing. The broker wouldn't make it impossible to access. He'd want a way in, just in case." MIA's eyes narrowed as she considered his words. "You're right. He's paranoid, but he's also meticulous. He'd have a backup plan, a way to access the file if something went wrong." Her gaze drifted to Whiskers, who was sitting on the floor beside Ethan. The cat had been their constant companion throughout this ordeal, his instincts proving invaluable time and time again. "Whiskers," Mia murmured, crouching down to scratch his head. "You've been our lucky charm so far. Think you can help us one more time?" The cat purred softly, his amber eyes locking onto hers as if he understood. Mia stood up, her mind racing. What if the code is something personal? Something only the broker would know? Jake raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Mia hesitated, her thoughts turning to Clara. Clara mentioned that her ex-husband was paranoid. If he had a fallback plan, it would be something only he knew, something tied to his past. She turned to Clara, who was sitting on the couch with Ethan. "Clara, I need you to think. Is there anything your ex-husband mentioned, a phrase, a number, anything, that might be significant?" Clara frowned, her brow furrowing in concentration. He used to talk about a fallback plan. He said if anything ever happened to him, there was a way out. But he never told me what it was." MIA's pulse quickened. "What else? Did he have a favorite number? A phrase he used a lot?" Clara's eyes widened. "There was something. He used to say, 'The lion never sleeps.' It was like his motto." He even had it engraved on a ring he always wore. MIA's heart skipped a beat. The lion never sleeps. That could be it. She turned to the tech specialist, who was working on the USB drive. Try Thelia never sleeps as the code. The tech specialist nodded, his fingers flying across the keyboard. For a moment, the room was silent, the tension palpable. Then the screen lit up, and the tech specialist let out a triumphant shout. It worked! We're in! Mia rushed to the computer, her eyes scanning the newly unlocked file. The information was staggering: names, locations, financial records, even recordings of conversations. It was everything they needed to bring down the broker's entire network. But there was one file that stood out, a video labeled "Final Message." Mia clicked on it, and the screen filled with the image of a man sitting in a dimly lit room. He was tall and lean, with cold, calculating eyes. "If you're watching this," the man said, his voice smooth and menacing, "then you've outsmarted me. Congratulations. But this isn't over. My network is vast, and my reach is long. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from finished." MIA's jaw tightened as she recognized the man. It was the broker. The video ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Mia Carter stared at the screen, her mind racing. The broker's message was a chilling reminder of the danger they were still in. Even with the USB drive's contents, the fight was far from over. "We need to move fast," Mia said, her voice urgent. "If the broker's network is as vast as he claims, we can't afford to waste any time." Jake nodded, his expression grim. "What's the plan?" Mia turned to the tech specialist. "Can you trace the location of that video? If we can find where it was recorded, we might be able to track down the broker." The tech specialist hesitated. "It's possible, but it'll take time. The video was heavily encrypted, and the location data is buried deep." "Do it," Mia said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We need every lead we can get." As the tech specialist worked, Mia turned to Clara and Ethan. "You've both been incredibly brave. But we're not out of the woods yet. The broker's still out there, and he's not going to stop until he gets what he wants." Clara nodded, though her hands trembled as she clutched Ethan's shoulder. "What can we do to help?" Mia hesitated. "Stay here. Stay safe. That's the best way you can help us right now." Ethan looked up at Mia, his eyes wide with fear. "Will Whiskers stay with us?" Mia smiled faintly. "Of course. He's part of the team now." The cat, as if understanding, purred softly and nuzzled against Ethan's leg. Hours passed as the tech team worked tirelessly to trace the video's location. Mia paced the room, her mind racing with possibilities. The broker's network was vast, but with the information from the USB drive, they had a chance to dismantle it piece by piece. Finally, the tech specialist let out a triumphant shout. "I've got it." The video was recorded at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. MIA's pulse quickened. That's where we'll find him. The team moved quickly, assembling a tactical unit to raid the warehouse. Mia and Jake led the operation, their determination fueled by the need to bring the broker to justice. As they approached the warehouse, the tension was palpable. The building loomed in the distance, its windows dark and its doors sealed. MIA's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she pressed on. They had come too far to stop now. The team breached the warehouse, their weapons drawn as they swept through the building. The interior was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of oil and rust. Deep within the warehouse, they found what they were looking for, a hidden room filled with computers, monitors, and stacks of documents. It was the nerve center of the broker's operation. But as Mia approached the computers, a voice crackled over a hidden speaker. "Impressive, Detective Carter. But you're too late." MIA's blood ran cold. It was the broker.